Hey everybody, thanks for coming out to the first lecture of session 2. Hopefully there'll be 4 more that are equally as awesome as this one's going to be. We're going to start off. Tim's going to talk for a couple minutes about Push Push and sort of what goes behind and the emphasis behind Push Push Theater as he directs the lights. And then we will have Rachel Parrish and Liz Bogue.
That's it.
Talk a little bit about the rehearsal techniques that they've developed as far as director and actor. So I leave
Thanks.
Tim Haberger on stage.
It's actually kind of good because there's people in here that we work with all the time, and we rarely get to do this. And I'm always amazed every time we finish a whole project with people at Push Push, and they still go, "I never got that. I didn't understand that." We have open staff meetings and everything, but very few people are kind of clued into what the purpose of the theater was, and they still see us as just being another theater, smaller or more rough around the edges or something like that. But the strategic planning that's gone into creating what we have is kind of specific. We started this 15 years ago for one reason, and it's kind of important in film projects, I think. We started because we wanted to have a voice in what it was that we worked on, which is rarely the opportunity. Unless you're going to create and fund or be the producer on your own projects, you usually don't get to pick what shows you're doing in theater or film. So we started as that, and meaning you could have a space where you could come in and work on your own weird, hairy idea and go someplace with it. We did it so that we'd have a choice of material. We did it so we'd have a choice of who you work with. My favorite thing is getting cast in something and then showing up to the first rehearsal and realizing who I'm working with. Which is like, that's not your choice, right? And they pay you $600 a week to take that choice away from you, which is fine sometimes when you need the $600 a week, but it's a shitty deal. It's always a shitty deal. You can't make the money you need, you can't get the health insurance you need, you can't do the things that you want to do, and you can't prolong a career that preserves your own voice over a long period of time. That's our thinking, and maybe not yours, but that was the idea of why Push Push was started. So we still had this idea that it's important to have a place like that. If you were a young Michael Haneke, if you were a young Wes Anderson, or if you were somebody that really wanted to create your own thing, or if you wanted to be your own kind of actor, there's a degree at which they'll take that choice away from you as much as possible. And we realized that, and that's kind of true. We also wanted to be able to connect our projects so that we felt like we could go someplace over the course of 1, 3, and 5-year planning, so that we could say, what I really want to focus on, priority, you know, and make those lists. It doesn't matter if you want to go out and do some commercials, but you don't want to get sucked into commercial thing. Okay, keep this as a priority, and you can keep working on your feature. You can keep doing something that you want to do. And you can connect the dots versus if you're always at the mercy of an audition, it's really a crapshoot whether you can connect the dots. So those are the reasons that we started Push Push, if that makes any sense at all, that there ought to be a place where you could get some support to do that. We then moved on to the next thing, which was our collaborative model, and we did that for almost 7 years, where we had a collaboration being the key. And we really started to investigate it. We started to work with a lot of different theaters. At that point, we went to where we were doing about 25% of our work was international. So we were working with a lot of different companies about, you know, how they went about the collaborative model, with ensemble companies, with different historic models for collaboration. And we liked it, and we felt there was something really great about it because it offered everybody a chance to move through between disciplines. For example, directors could write, writers could act, actors could direct, you know, this kind of thing. We also felt like you had more of a direct voice in what was going on in the project and in every aspect of the project. And the collaboration model appealed to a lot of people. We started to find that it wasn't as efficient because we found that what happened was you spent a lot of time where everybody was discussing everything. So when the DP was going to go ahead and change a camera setup, you know, you'd have an actor in there with no training at all whatsoever, and what was going on, going, you know what, you really should, and you would do that. And we worked out a number of systems during that period. One of them that is still, I think, the most brilliant thing that we ever did, which was the 5 tribe model, meaning you got 5 people in a set, and everybody's saying, hey, you know, how about this way? So we would start and we'd say, you know what, let's see how much time it takes to actually stop the process right now and go, we're going to take your idea, let's try it. And we tried it. You know, we weren't shooting on film, we weren't wasting that stuff and everything else, and you know, in the theater it was very easy to do. Then we would go and say, okay, so he's saying, you know, Romeo doesn't love Juliet. Okay, let's try it, you know, because he's passionate about that. So the next one we go, Juliet doesn't love Romeo. And then the next one after that, hey, brother. The next one after that, we would try something else, and we'd try 5 different ways. And we started to go, how much time were we wasting by trying everybody's idea and being open to it? What I found was that about 60% of the time or more, my initial idea changed. And you know me, I'm very opinionated, but by the time everybody had a voice in the matter, we really found that we could change. It was like, yeah, and usually we came up with a hybrid, something that was a collection of ideas. It's not so much that he doesn't love her, but he has to be, you know, talked into this path by Juliet, and that gives her more empowerment and all, you know, we'd find a weird way to go about it. Or just changing 5 different shots and taking a look at it with video. It was really easy to do. And at the end of the game, we always found that it wasn't at all difficult for everybody to come to a consensus and go, it's obvious that, you know, the second choice really works with a little bit of the fifth, and that's what everybody seemed happy with. And everybody got a chance to voice something, and it wasn't an argument. We didn't end up spending all that time just arguing over that and basically saying no. And one of the things that I liked that came out of that period for us is that we started to go, bring something positive. Say yes to something. Somebody's got an idea, don't immediately start shooting it down, just try to, you know, go with it and get it. The problem is that we still had that problem of a lot of people doing jobs that they weren't qualified to do, and there were no level systems. We didn't want to have a hierarchy, but we also didn't want somebody that's never picked up a camera telling the DP how to do their job all the time. And the DP was having to sit there and go through this shit and explain why it wasn't there, and we were doing that a lot. As a director, I was explaining to actors a lot of why something wasn't going to be clear, and after a whole day of that, they'd go, oh, I see it now, I see what you're talking about. And it's like, well, this was a rehearsal, it wasn't, you know, your college days, so that was the problem. But we started to be positive about it. We moved into something then about 5 years ago and developed it for about 2 years, and it was just based on the open source thinking model. Meaning everybody does a job, but with open source, the biggest key to open source thinking is that it allows multiple agendas to be alive on a single project, okay? You can go ahead and have it. We're still in that process, and we have a lot of verbiage that we've worked with, and we've worked with a lot of different companies on developing it, but the idea was, it kind of goes back to what a real film set looks like, where, you know, the director directs, the DP is in charge of what he's doing, the actors are in charge of what he's doing, et cetera, et cetera. The only difference is that we still had and maintained choice over what we wanted to work on, who we wanted to work with, and to be able to connect the dots in our career. A really good example, Raymond and I just got done working on a movie. I consider myself a good actor. I take acting very seriously. And I'm working with a director who takes directing very seriously. By the time I get to the set, where there's 50 crew people going on, and you're on the stage with me so bad. And you get there, I've had an hour-and-a-half rehearsal to do my work, and I've got 1-sentence directions, like you need to try it a little bit more angry. Try it a little bit more angry. And this is it. At which the production manager, after I finish a take, is going, fuck, that was great, this guy's got it. And I'm thinking, it's almost as good as a Cialis commercial. You know, I mean, those actors are also very good. They're professional and they're great. And I'm going, that's not what I really came here to do. But because of the exigencies of the, you know, the film production, Dan doesn't really have a chance to stop and really work with me, and I'm going, okay, so in the open source model, what happens is you start to go, what areas are you good at, what areas are other people good at, and you let people do the job that they're good at, if that makes sense. If you've ever worked on a film shoot where the DP is being controlled completely by the director, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you've ever been there as an actor and just being told one-line things to do, you kind of go, how well could I do my job with an hour-and-a-half rehearsal? I'm good, but to be real honest, I look at that work and go, it's 20%. It's 20% of what I could do, and there's not one original idea in there. There's not one thing that really went like that. So when we moved to the open source model, and there's a lot of stuff you can get an open source planning doc that we've got here, we started looking at people being able to build their own plans and create their own financial picture and portfolio. And it changed pretty much everything that we did around here. And it's something that's still in working process right now. And I know a lot of you know that we're working with Turner this year, and part of that whole basis is to try to get original voices on their own planning model so that we do individual planning for that. And that's part of this open source phase that we're in right now. Maybe you'll come along and make us into our next fourth phase, but right now that's where we're at.